City of the Daleks, the first of 5 Doctor Who adventure games released in June of 2010. Right in the middle of Series 5, Matt Smith is the Doctor, and these short-lived redesigns as the Daleks. Coming up on 15 years since they teased that Eternal Dalek, I'm sure we'll find out what's so special about it any day now. In this game, getting caught by the Daleks is a death sentence with no way to defend yourself, so you need to sneak around them with stealth mechanics. In this video, we're going to explore the hows and whys of the Daleks' behavior by snooping directly into the game's code. In a nutshell, here's how the Daleks work in this game. There are 2 different behavior types for them to idle in, either guarding or patrolling. They aren't different types of Dalek, any Dalek is capable of either behavior, but none of them ever switch between these states in-game, so in practice, any given Dalek is permanently either on guard or on patrol. Guard Daleks will remain at their post and fire from a distance. If you leave their range of aggression, they'll remain alert for a few moments, then return to keeping watch. If you get spotted, all guards will be alerted to your position and turn to look in your direction wherever they are, but only ones that have you in their vision cone will shoot at you, with one small exception that I'll come back to later. Patrol Daleks will pace back and forth along their assigned path, but these ones will break off and pursue you. If they lose sight of you, they'll continue moving towards your last known position, and if they reach that spot and haven't gotten you back in their sights, they'll sweep back and forth around them and check for you, and if they still don't see you after that, they'll give up and return to their patrol. Getting too close to any Dalek of either type is absolutely guaranteed to get you killed, for reasons we'll get into shortly. So that's the general overview that you could glean just from playing the game and paying attention. From here on, we get into specific details that we only know from reading the Daleks' behavior programming in the game's files. There's just over 1,000 lines of code in here, so this breakdown will only cover what's most interesting and easiest to visualize. Daleks have 3 different alert levels. Level 1 isn't directly referenced in this script, but it can be safely assumed to be their idle state. Level 2, therefore, is when they're aware of the player and trying to shoot at them, and Level 3 is instant death. These levels of alertness do not directly correspond to the 3-tiered danger indicator you see as the player, these are specific to each individual Dalek. Alert Level 2 Sight Distance. This variable in the code corresponds to the length of the vision cone, which is set to 16 units in this case. By setting this to a different value and then booting up the game again, we can see how it alters the size of the cone. Alert Level 2 FOV, that's for Field of View, is the spread of the vision cone, which is independently adjustable in the X and Y axis. Both of these are set to 60 degrees. It seems that the Daleks actually see with a 3-dimensional cone, or maybe more like a quadrilateral pyramid, but the point is more up and down than these flat green scan rays would have you believe. The X variable is used to set their horizontal field of view, and Y for their invisible vertical field of view. The only time that vertical field of view becomes apparent in-game is here, where the Daleks continue to track you as you ascend the ramp up to the Emperor. Alert Level 2 Sight Warm-Up. This, set by default to a negligible tenth of a second, is the Dalek's reaction time when seeing the player. Lengthening it results in a longer pause between entering chase mode and the Dalek starting to fire. There is also a corresponding Alert Level 2 Sight Cooldown, which is set to 8 seconds, and this is the amount of time a Dalek will remain on alert after losing sight of you. Messing with this variable has an effect on Guard Daleks, but not Patrol Daleks, since Patrol Daleks don't exhibit this behavior anyway. Patrol Daleks will return to their roots as soon as they fail to get you back in their sights. Alert Level 3 Sight Distance. This functions as a smaller, invisible vision cone within the main one, where crossing into it means guaranteed death. Get close enough to a Dalek, and it won't matter how good you are at evasive maneuvering, their shots will literally curve through the air like a guided missile to get you, as well as go straight through obstacles. This is not normally obvious, since the trigger for this state means getting close enough to a Dalek that there won't be any obstacles or chance to evade, but changing it to trigger from farther away makes it very clear what's going on, when you can actually watch the projectile change direction to chase you. Alert Level 3 FOV. Interestingly, this death zone, as I like to call it, is only 40 degrees wide instead of 60, though it still covers the full 60 degrees in height. This means it's theoretically possible to just glance off the side of a Dalek's vision cone and only trigger alert level 2, but in practice, it's probably not even worth trying to deliberately pull it off, especially with no visual indicator. Alert level 3 Sight Warm-Up. This is just like the warm-up variable for alert level 2, forestalling the amount of time between stepping in the death zone and your death by a measly 0.1 seconds. Extending this duration makes the delay more noticeable, but in standard gameplay, it's effectively non-existent. Also effectively non-existent is the alert level Sight 3 cooldown, which is hard to test, but it seems to be used to make sure the Dalek remains in this instant death state even if you step in and back out of the alert level 3 vision cone. It's set to 15 seconds, which is a time that's comfortably beyond what's possible to exhaust in normal gameplay. Effectively, once you cross into the death zone, this variable makes sure there's no going back. Alert level 2 hearing distance. Daleks have a small radius around them set to 2 units of distance where they will hear your approach and turn around to look if you get too close. In the game, normally, if you're this close to a Dalek when it notices you, then you probably only have about a second to live, but here's what it would look like if their vision cone were shrunk down to nothing and they were relying entirely on their hearing radius to track you. In effect, their vision is impaired and they cannot see. Alert level 2 hearing warm-up. Just like the warm-up variable for vision, this is the Dalek's reaction time. It's set to a practically non-existent 0.01 seconds, but extending it creates a delay between the Dalek hearing you and turning around to see. Alert level 2 hearing cooldown. You never guess it from playing the game, since the exact same time at 8 seconds, but being seen and being heard by a Dalek have their own variables for how long it will wait around for you. Though this extra customization was never used, it allows for a Dalek to spend a different amount of time looking for you if it had only heard you behind it than it would if it had actually spotted you in its vision cone. Alert Level 3 hearing is a feature of the Dalek AI that goes completely unused, being set to 0. If it were possible to trigger this behavior, it would result in the death zone extending behind the Dalek as well as in front of it, which would essentially make it impossible to escape if a Dalek hears you behind it. As it is now, in case you've never tried, it is actually possible to sneak up behind a Dalek and give it the slip before it fully is facing your direction. It also comes with its own warm-up and cooldown variables, but those are rendered pointless by proxy. Now, remember when I said there was an exception to how Daleks will only fire at you if you're standing in their vision cone? Well, that exception happens right at the beginning of the game, the first stealth section, where you might be tempted to try climbing up something in order to escape the Daleks, either back across this upturned taxi the way you came, or up this raised ledge of concrete at the far end of the stealth section. This would cause a problem, because that would take you out of a stealth area, making you suddenly invisible to the Daleks who are supposed to be hot on your tail. The developer's fix for this was to program the Dalek behavior to fire a shot as soon as you press climb, if you're currently being chased, that is. It doesn't matter if you're in any Dalek's vision cone or not. It doesn't even matter if any Dalek has line of sight to you or not. Every single Dalek will fire an unavoidable shot, stopping you from escaping the stealth area. There are no more opportunities to trigger this behavior after that, but by modifying the game to allow for a situation where a Dalek is chasing me into this room which has a climbing section, you can see how the same thing happens, which shows that it's part of the Dalek behavior and not something triggered by those specific pieces of environment back at the beginning. You can even see how some of those shots come down through the ceiling. Those are coming from the strategist Daleks up in the Emperor's throne room that are only supposed to be used in cutscenes and can't be interacted with. So, that's pretty much everything there is to know about the Daleks' behavior, but here is one more piece of trivia concerning some unused voice lines. When you're being chased by a Dalek, they will shout at you while trying to kill you, just like they do in the show. And fun fact, guard Daleks and patrol Daleks actually have slightly different dialogue, but they also have a couple of unused lines, which I'll be playing now. These are never heard in the game as normal.
Area secured! Area clear! Enemy evading! Target lost!
What's interesting about these is, it's not clear why these never happen in the game, or even if their removal was even intentional or some kind of bug. We can see in the dialogue script that enemy evading is meant to be said by a pursuing patrol Dalek when the danger indicator goes from red back down to yellow, so when you get out of its vision cone. Area secured is for when a patrol Dalek gives up trying to find you, and target lost and area clear are those direct equivalents for guard Daleks. Interestingly, we have actually been able to get the enemy evading line to work a couple times, but not on purpose. Only at times when we've been messing with the code in other ways and the game is overall deeply confused. Maybe the conditions to trigger the dialogue are somehow accidentally unattainable playing the game normally, but if you could meet those conditions in a glitchy kind of way, it would still work apparently.
Enemy evading.
Sadly, we've examined what we can of the Dalek AI pretty thoroughly, and it hasn't yielded any explanation for this glitched out dialogue. So, that brings to a close the first major video on this channel. Since the subject matter is so incredibly niche, even among Doctor Who fans, these videos are likely to remain pretty unnoticed and obscure forever. But if you're someone who played the adventure games as a kid and has typed them into YouTube's search bar for some nice nostalgia, for example, hopefully this kind of deep dive content is something you can enjoy. The information in these videos comes from the collective effort of a small handful of fans, and we've done what I'm fairly confident in calling the deepest analysis of these games that's ever been done, mainly by being some of the only analysis of these games that's ever been done. More videos are to come, there's still much more to cover, but probably not very frequently.